Good.
Good evening and welcome everyone to our Race First study session. Today we will be chapter 3, as well as some of the questions that pertain to the previous chapters, starting with the preface. And trying to keep everyone engaged. So as we go through the questions, we'll define some terms that is kind of understood based on the context, but still like to define some terms. And also we'll do, every time we get to a passage where that's being said by Marcus Garvey, we'll try to kind of not necessarily, be Marcus Garvey with the accent and everything, but we'll try to pretend we're Marcus Garvey reading these passages. So that being said, I guess, Brother John, we can open the meeting with our mottos and
Yeah, we can do the motto for an official open if everyone would. Please put your black fist in the air, repeat after me. One God,
one
One
God,
God,
one aim,
one
one
aim,
aim,
one destiny.
one
destiny.
destiny.
Race first, family.
Race first.
Race first.
So you want to go straight to the preface questions?
Yes, so we'll go ahead and start with the preface questions. I'm not sure if everyone got that in the digital download, but
I'm gonna send it right now because they have it. But now that I know who's here, I know who to send it to. Motel. Sister Cicely. Imhotep Cicely, Brother Art, Sister Diane, you already have it. I just sent it. I just got it recently myself, so don't feel as though anything is unfair. We're all getting this information for the first time. We got Brother Abdul Aziz just joined, so I'll make sure I send him a copy. Oh, word. Greetings, Brother Abdul. Brother Abdul, if you could drop what's your email? If you could drop your email in the chat for me, please, so I can send you the questions. I thought it was your name. All right, well, we'll proceed, Brother Abdul, if you can. Again, if you'd like to get a copy of the questions, please drop your email so I don't have to go search for it. Sister Diane, is my screen sharing?
it is. Has everyone received a copy?
Yes. Except for Brother Abdul, I'm waiting for his email confirmation. Um, I think we can proceed, Sister Diane. Brother Abdul, again, if you, uh, I'll find his email. But Sister Diane, if you want to start with the first question.
Okay, so just a little recap, and for those who are sitting in for the first time, the title of the book is Race First by Tony Martin. And essentially, right in the beginning of the book, the title, part of the title says it's about the ideological and organizational struggles of Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And so ideological is defined just based on or relating to a system of ideas or ideals, especially those concerning economic or political theory and policy. So the first question, the preference, according to Tony Martin, what simple premise is the book Race First based on?
I know the answer, but I'm gonna hold off and give everybody.
Okay, so we could give someone else a shot.
Anyone want to give it a shot? Brother James just entered. We got to get him questions. Nobody?
It's based on the largest Black organization in the history of America.
It, Sister Diane, you're on mute.
That was actually close. According to Tony Martin, Race First is based on the premise that no one could have organized and no one could have organized and build up the largest Black movement in Afro-American history. And this was done in the face of continuous onslaught from communists on the left, from Black reactionaries on all sides, and the most powerful governments in the world. So basically, all of this was not a deterrent for Garvey because he persevered, and the whole thing just shows that he was not a coward, basically. And does anyone else want to add to that?
I'll also add the last part of that first paragraph, and yet be a buffoon or clown or even an unwhelming, impractical visionary. So it implies that Mr. Garvey knew what he was doing. He wasn't, this wasn't done by chance. It was well thought out, well orchestrated.
Right. And he dared to have big dreams in spite of it. Didn't deter him.
Yes, yes, very true.
And so question number 2 is, what is Tony Martin attempting to do with the Race First study?
I don't know exactly, but it has to be
Anyone could.
some level of informing us.
So someone could take a guess. They want.
Anybody else?
I'll take a stab at it, if that's all right.
Okay.
Um, in reading it before, it seems more so like brother Tony Martin wanted to provide a rationale to Garvey's approach to, you know, all of, I guess, the elements of the Garvey movement, kind of and to put it all in one. Um, to that African fundamentalism, establishing pride in the race and why pride in the race um, was essential before tackling such a movement. That's kind of what I took from it in reading it. And, in reading it, that's my kind of take. That was my take.
That's actually pretty good. He wanted to just, bring about the overall seriousness of everything and the magnitude of work that it entailed. But according to the book, essentially, the study attempt to treat Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association with the seriousness and the respect which they deserve.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you see how in depth it is as you get into the book. It just captures it all. Brother Tony Martin just did a really good job capturing everything. We've not gone through the whole book, but just from how he frames the early parts of the book. So, if no one else has anything to add, we can go to question 3.
I'll add a point, side note to that, because he also added the seriousness and respect. We should be aware that Dr. Tony Martin was appointed the official historian by President General Charles L. James. And when you read a lot of the history, it was because they were trying to preserve the legitimate history of the UNIA and Marcus Garvey. And the alternate individuals that were publishing information at that time was Robert Hill. They were coming out with the Robert Hill UNIA papers, but it wasn't authorized, by the UNIA, so to speak. So Dr. Tony Martin provided the authorized, legitimate internal perspective of the UNIA and the Garvey movement.
Anyone else? Okay, so we'll go ahead and advance to question number 3. And question number 3. Okay. Says that Garvey prevailed against desperate forces with a common desire to crush him and extirpate his movement. And the second part says, what event slowly began to loosen Garvey's organizational grip of the Black masses in North America and to varying degree elsewhere? What event basically started to lessen that enormous grip?
I know the answer, but I'll let someone else go.
I know the answer too if nobody else wants to. Yes.
Go ahead, Brother James.
His deportation from the United States is what Brother Martin ultimately attributes that loosening of his organizational grip.
That is correct.
I
The
don't-
deportation from the United States. Did anyone else wanted to add anything to that?
Yes. It looks like it immediately when when Garvey is deported, there started the fraction of the government. People started a different members left, formed different. I don't know so much if they weren't named UNIA, but something similar. Uh, there were members who left the UNIA, and so the divisions we see today started immediately once Garvey was deported, and grew from then to almost 100 years later where we are today. That's it. Thank you.
That's a great point. It's almost as if some folks were afraid of the name or something. They cowered. But I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Brother John.
Uh, it's just very ironic coming out of Malcolm X Day. We had to kind of explain this to a lot of our brothers and sisters because people want to know, what was the status of the organization, didn't know that the UNIA was still around, and what was the history, what happened after the Black Star Line and the ships and Garvey being imprisoned, and where's the organization today? But it's just ironic that this is history, and this is what we have to tell our people is that it was Garvey's deportation, one, but also his unfortunate transition in 1942 that caused a lot of our disagreements and fractions within the UNIA. So it's good history.
Okay. Awesome. And if someone wants to have a dictionary handy, I thought it was just kind of good to define some of these words as we go through. Extirpate means to crush, to root out and destroy completely. So basically, it was saying that there were forces with a common desire to crush him, to extirpate his movement. They just wanted it gone because it was a irritation for some. And it's mind-boggling to me that that would be a source of problems to people, that someone is fighting to or advocating to end the suffering of others. I mean, it's still mind-boggling that people are comfortable while the feet of a few is on the neck of many, but that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, we can continue if no one else has anything to add.
Trying to get the as a recent, I've been looking at a lot of etymology. So I want to pull up the etymology of that word for further context. Extirpation. Is that the same? Okay, extirpate. Yeah, as you said, root up, root out, 1530s, usually figurative from Latin extirpatus, 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 past participle of extirpare, root out, eradicate, pull up by the roots. See extirpation related. So yeah, pull up by the roots. That's destroy completely, as Sister Diane said. But leave no evidence and no opportunity for future growth.
Mm. Crazy.
All right.
Okay, so this next set of the rest of chapter of the preface, Brother Tony Martin is just giving just thanking folks that made everything possible, and it was a lot of names, so we can all go back and look at that. In case there are any final questions in the final. But so those were basically the questions for the preface. So we get into chapter 1, and chapter 1 starts out by asking, in terms of the number of the years that the book covers, what time period of Garvey's life does the book Race First by Tony Martin cover? If anyone wants to take a shot at that one.
I'll take a shot.
Go ahead, please.
1887 to 1940, from his birth to his death.
Perfect. That is correct.
So he was 50, he was only 52 years old when he died. Is that correct?
Very young.
Yes.
Too young.
Happy birthday.
Too much stress from these people, and the jail thing didn't help, I'm sure. One could only imagine, but that was definitely too young.
Agree. Birth to death, 1887, 1940.
Okay, so question number 2 says, okay, actually, so one of the things that what is, I guess, kind of good to do, these 2 questions basically come from the opening of chapter 1, where Marcus Garvey is speaking, like the first 2 paragraphs. So I thought it would be good just to kind of bring Garvey's word to life by just reading what he says. I mean, the questions are going to come from these 2 anyway, by just reading what he says to make it a little more exciting. So if anyone wants to volunteer to sound like Marcus Garvey, please be my guest and take the first paragraph. If not, I mean, you don't have to have a thick Jamaican accent or anything like that. Just more. If not, I'll do it. Even though.
What do I care about death in the cause of redemption of Africa? I could die anywhere in the cause of liberty. A real man dies but once. A coward dies 1,000 times before his real death. So we want you to realize that life is not worth its salt, except if you live it for some purpose. And the noblest purpose for which to live is the emancipation of a race and the emancipation of posterity.
Thank you. That was great. And Brother Art. And so the next paragraph, does anyone want to read that one? If not, I'll do it. Well, you cover up, right? Cover up, all right. So anyway, don't stay up there, stay there. So I was gonna do both paragraphs and answer the question, but we can go ahead and answer the first question since it came from the text that was just read. So according to Marcus Garvey, life is not worth its salt, except you live it for some purpose. And the question was, what did Garvey say was the noblest purpose for which to live? And the answer for that came from the first paragraph was that the emancipation of a race and the emancipation of posterity were the noblest purpose for which one could live. Does anyone wish to add to that?
I would say the emancipation of Mother Africa.
Yes, absolutely. And it is the noblest purpose because if you do it the way Garvey did it, I mean, you're basically giving up everything, taking chances, taking risks. It's like you eat, breathe, sleep, dream, scheme about nothing else but your people and the emancipation of your people. And personally, I can't think of anything that's more noble than that.
Race first.
Race first. Anyone else?
Yes, that question in your passage reminded me of the movie Marcus Garvey, where he was speaking to someone, I can't recall who it was. It was one of his followers about he was the threat of going to prison, and he was, it was nothing to him. If you're fighting for your people, going to prison, be put behind bars was
Yes,
yeah
absolutely.
the alternative I guess would be to give in or whatever, but he wanted, it was nothing for him. He wasn't going to give in, and it was an honor to go to prison, almost. That was nothing. And so that was just being steadfast in your belief, and it was all for the race. That's why he did it. It was very moving.
And no coward. He was not a coward by any stretch. I mean, I'm sure he went through moments where things were a little scary, like when they had made an attempt on his life, but he persevered because his cause was bigger. If no one else has anything to add, we can advance to question 2. And if no one wants to read the second paragraph,
Well, I think
right? So the emancipation of the race and the emancipation of posterity. Does anyone want to take a stab at posterity?
Posterity is your future.
That is correct.
Children.
So wasn't just talking about today. He's talking about future generations. So the cause was really big, he wasn't talking about just today, but
Yes. Posterity, a person's offspring, descendants collectively. Future time, after generation, offspring, literally the condition of coming after, subsequent. But yes, future generations. violation.
Okay. So, oh yeah, this other question was also a part of the first paragraph. Oh no, wait, that's the second.
Yeah, it's in the first quote, I think, isn't it?
Right. He says a real man dies. Well, what does he say about a coward?
Somebody want to answer that one?
It says a coward dies 1,000 deaths before he dies.
That is correct. A man dies but once, but a coward dies 1,000 times before his real death. That's pretty powerful.
Yes.
So the fourth question is kind of based on the next paragraph, but I'll read the paragraph first if no one wants to sound like Garvey. Anyone want to volunteer?
I'll go ahead. History
Okay.
History records that slaves, by virtue of their experience and the knowledge gained in captivity in strange lands, have eventually become masters of themselves and in time enslaved others. Therefore, let us therefore use adversity as others have done. Take advantage of every opportunity. Where there is none, make it for yourself, and let history record that as we toiled laboriously and courageously, we worked to live gloriously.
That is correct. So the question asks, how does Garvey say that we should use as adversity, and what should we do when there are no opportunities, I think is what the rest of that says. You can move the page up a little bit. No, I mean without showing all the answer, just kind of go down a little bit more. Right. He says, what should we do when there are opportunities or lack of opportunities? That was in the second paragraph that Brother John just read.
Oh, let's see it. Where there's none, make it for yourself.
That's correct. He said, let us therefore use adversity as others have done. Take advantage of every opportunity, and where there is none, make it for yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So if no one has anything to add, we'll advance to question number 3. I think I have the numbers messed up here, obviously. But when and where was Marcus Messiah Garvey born?
No.
We're
Say
still in the introduction.
St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica, August 17th, 1987.
1887.
Thank you.
Thank you.
80, right. Thank you. That was exactly right. St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica on August 17th, 1887.
Yeah.
it feels so like wrapping your head around the 1800s. Yes, so question number 4 says Garvey's father was a stonemason. A stonemason also engaged in small-scale peasant farming and is a descendant of the Maroons. So the question asks, who are the Maroons of Jamaica?
That's a good question. I got it if nobody has it.
Any volunteers? Brother John?
Jamaica's African ex-slaves who successfully defied the slave regime.
That is correct. Okay. Anyone else wanted to add anything to that?
I have a question. Wasn't the Maroons in America also ex-slaves?
That is correct, but I think they're specifically just talking about being in Jamaica and define the whole regime. And they actually flock to the mountains. And someone was talking about war the other day. It was saying something about the strategic spot during the course of war is to be on top of the mountains as opposed to being in the valley. And somehow they defied the regime and, they were left alone. I don't have all the history on any battles that they were engaged in and and their fight for freedom, so to speak. But I was told that the Maroons are still in Jamaica and they're still living in the mountains generations and generations afterwards. So, so I think that was the main thing about that. I don't know if anyone else wants to add any more to that.
I thought Maroons was a a description of slaves who ex-slaves who rebelled against whatever country they were in. I thought that there were Maroons in America, Maroons in Jamaica, Maroons in Haiti, Maroons in a lot of the islands. It's just my thought. Just my
Well,
thought.
that could apply. I mean, um, it's more of a title, I think, and not an adjective, but I mean, now we could look it up and see how it's defined. I don't know if we'll find it in the regular dictionary, but I grew up hearing people talking about the Maroons, that they were a force to reckon with, and that today they're still living in the mountains of Jamaica. And in fact, I met someone recently that said their father was part of the Maroons of Jamaica. So, but it probably, may have been used in another way just to describe a group of, I guess, what they would call radicals who seek to defy all that stuff and carve out their own, destiny.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I understand that.
Okay. So if does anyone have anything else to add? Did you want to try to see if it's in the dictionary, maroons? Just see how they describe it.
Sure. I wouldn't trust theirs, but
Okay, all right.
we'll try it.
Okay.
So etymology wasn't the best. Doesn't look.
Okay. All right, so we can advance. Okay.
Put ashore on it. It's maroon as in deserted. Put ashore
Okay.
on a desolate island by way of punishment. I mean, I guess that could apply.
It says fugitive black slaves living in the wilder parts of Dutch Guyana
Or Jamaica.
or Jamaica.
Yeah,
So it doesn't really just pertain to Jamaica and other West Indian islands.
yeah.
See how they say wild, untamed, unruly, fugitive. They always have to put their negative spin on stuff.
Yep, that's what I said. I wouldn't.
They're the fugitive who went there with their guns and went to Africa and steal people. But anyway,
Notion of living wild in mountains. Yeah. Okay.
okay. So if no one else has anything to add, we can advance to question 5. It says Garvey became an apprentice to a local printer, left school at the age of 14, and landed an excellent position as manager of a large printing establishment by the time he was 18, making him the youngest foreman printer in Kingston at the time. And then the other part says some of the things that may have prepared Garvey for this during his early years are. So what are some of the things that prepared Garvey, at such a young age to leave school to become manager of a large printing establishment when he was just 18? And becoming the youngest foreman printer in Kingston at the time may have contributed, what some of the things in his early years may have contributed to his advancement to such positions.
His father's library.
Hmm.
He loved to read.
Yes. Yes, that is true. That is true. Anyone else?
I'll say work ethic he inherited from his family.
Okay. That is true.
Yeah, I'd say he speaks of always responding when someone criticizes you or whatever. Always make certain you respond. If you don't, someone will and fill in the void. Uh, also, propaganda with the printing, being a master printer. He knew not only that you had to respond, in writing, but you got to get your propaganda out there. Also in writing, printing,
Yes.
letting people know what your your response. Give the people a response. Give them something to what you believe in. Your propaganda.
Yes, he seemed to somehow always been, on his toes, so to speak, when it comes to the right response. Because it was just an ingrained belief system that just he was a part of him. Anyone else?
Yeah, I want to add on to it if I may. Kind of piggybacking off Brother Emotep, I believe the foundation a lot the foundation of a lot of Garvey's responses. It was a quote by Dr. John Henry Clark, and I think Garvey embodied this in all of his responses. But having that essential selfishness of survival, given all that he went through during his younger years, you know, and particularly with his family, seeing his, siblings die, things that happened with his mother and sister, his father. I think that kind of and ushered his urgent and prepared response to so many things.
Yes. He had to kind of grow up quickly, you know, become an adult quicker with all the adversities and things. Okay, so if no one else has anything to add, we can advance to the answers, and then question number 6. So some of the things that we touched on, his father's library that helped him to develop an early taste for reading, an adequate elementary education. He also had private tutors, and Sunday schools and things like that. They said he was he had natural leadership ability. So question number 6 says, what action on the part of Garvey yes, cost him his job as a foreman printer, and where did he obtain new employment after he lost his job?
I think I know the first part, but I'm questioning the second part.
I'm gonna take a shot.
Second part, was it a government job? Did he get a government job?
That is correct.
Okay.
And
Anybody
is
got?
it anyone want to take a shot at the first part? What resulted in him losing his job?
Participate in the strike.
That is correct. That is correct.
Participate in strike and government printer. Okay.
Right. Okay. So these questions are kind of asked kind of in a timeline as how they present themselves through the text to kind of keep it simple to follow along. So the next question is gonna center around 1909, what was going on. And it reads, Brother John?
Yeah,
Kim.
1 second. I'm trying to. No, I didn't mess up this file. I think I did. Oh my gosh.
If you don't show it, I could read it.
No, I'm gonna show it. I had some notes that I ruined. You want me to show the answer, right?
No, not yet, because that's the question right there.
Oh. So what
You had
happened?
it right.
What happened in 1909? Is that the question?
No. It was the timeline. So that's the timeline we're covering, and then right below that is the question.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So okay. I know that looked a little weird. So it says Garvey's political involvement in 1909 got him elected as one of the assistant secretaries of the National Club. And the question is, what did the National Club sought to achieve, and who organized it? So what did the National Club sought to achieve, and who organized it? Does anyone want to try that one?
Found it, but oh wait.
I'll give a hint. It was by a lawyer and a legislative council.
Okay, I got the answer, I believe. They sought to combat privilege and the evils of British colonialism on the island.
Very good, Brother James.
Organized by
And
Stanley Cox.
that is correct. One wants to add anything else? Organized by a lawyer and legislative council member, Sandy Cox, and the club sought to combat the privilege and evils of British colonialism on the island. Anyone wanted to add anything to that? Okay, so question number 8. Garvey embarked on the first of many wanderings in foreign lands. Where did he go and what did he do around the time frame of 1910? Anyone wants to take a shot?
He went to Costa Rica, and there he worked as a timekeeper for the United Fruit Company banana plantation and as a laborer on the pier at Port Limon. Edited the paper La Nacion, harassed the British consul concerning his non-protection of the many British West Indian laborers working there, was arrested for urging workers to fight for better conditions, and was eventually expelled from the country or left to escape authorities.
That is spot on. Does anyone else want to add anything to that?
I don't think you can.
Okay, all right. So then, okay, let's look at those answers, those spot on answers, and then we Costa Rica, timekeeper and laborer, worked as an editor. Harassed the British Council, got arrested, got expelled from Costa Rica. He spent another year or more in Latin America until around 2012? Oh my gosh, guys. Wow. That was a slip. He also went to Panama and Ecuador and started a paper in Colon, Panama, and agitated amongst Black workers, addressed Colon Federal, that's labor, supposed to be labor union.
Sister Diane.
Yes.
Technically, the Latin America portion would be 1911 after when they say another year when he continued for the next year or so, wandered through Latin America.
Right. So it didn't quite get to 1912 yet then.
Yeah, but the question was about 1910 and we included 1911. That's all.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I got you. Okay. Mm. And around that time too, with the travels, he started to observe the universal degradation of the Black race. And they were saying around that time also, he may have stopped at a seaport in the United States. So he may have made a brief stop in the US. Okay, so if no one else has anything to add, then we can advance to question 9. So so after leaving Central America and making a brief stop in Jamaica, Garvey spent about 2 years or so in England and visited about 8 other European countries. What 2 passions was he able to indulge in while in England?
I see one of them.
Okay. Gonna give it a shot?
Love of public speaking. It's one.
Yes.
And writing for the
That is
African
correct.
Orient Review.
That is correct. Anyone else? Yes. That's right. So he was able to engage at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, and then he was writing for the African Times and Orient Review. Anyone else want to add anything to that? If
Nothing.
not, we can.
Yeah, nothing for this specifically, but one thing that I would like everyone to consider is Mr. Garvey's age throughout each of these time periods. And we may not have the exact age, but if we know he was born 1887 and we're talking about the period in 1912 or 1911, how old was Mr. Garvey at these times? So this, we would have been, what, 25 at this time? 1912. 1910 would have been 23. Yeah, so 1912 would be about 25 years old.
Okay. Still pretty young.
Yes, and that's something that I talk with people about. People talk about his success and those things. I'm like, he had money. You know, I don't know many 25-year-olds that was traveling the world. Was Europe and Middle East. I'm sorry, not
You
Middle East,
can
Central America.
pull, yeah. You can go back up. I think we were on, was that the next one or there was one before?
So 19.
Okay, that was the last one. Okay. So, all right. So the next question says, speaking of having money, right? It says Garvey experienced some financial hardship while in England, but was able to make it through the year from article he wrote working at the African Times and Orient Review. And then the next part of the question says, is that true or false? Wait, hold on. Oh yeah, the next one is a true or false question that we get. So we haven't gotten to the question yet. Okay, so the question says, the Anti-Slavery and Aborigines Protection Society and the Colonial Office raise funds to pay for Mr. Garvey's passage money back home to Jamaica. Is that true or false? Anyone want to guess?
Looks like it's true from what I'm reading.
Anyone else?
Yeah, it looks to be true from what I just read.
Okay. Let's see the answer, shall we?
False.
It's actually false because although they were discussing it and one said to the other, one of the organization told the other one that they would match whatever money they came up with, Garvey actually managed to do without the help from either of those two agencies. And he succeeded in raising his fare home and left England on January 17, 1914.
I thought that term largest just meant like it was like an old way of saying largest, EST. So as if he didn't get
We could look it up. I don't think I put a definition on it, but we could look it up real quick. Because it was more like offers. They offered, but they never really came through. And I guess, and then one said to the other, I'll put this much up if you match, and if you match whatever I put up. So I think it was more of they were deliberating and looking into it, and while they were doing that, Garvey just found a way around it. Is how I interpreted it, at least.
I think you might be right. Now look at so it's largest, willing to give or spend freely, significance, munificence, a bounty. So it's like a fund itself.
Right. So they were willing to do it, and one reached out to the other, to pool the resources and match what the other gave, but I don't think it ever materialized. And somehow he managed to find a way to make it happen.
Understand.
And so the next question, and if no one else has anything to add to that. It says, how was Garvey's first sojourn in England of great importance to his career? How did the various anti-colonial struggles contributed further to Garvey's growth and influence his future outlook?
Well, it says here that his first sojourn in England, and be quiet, was of great importance to his career. And the workings of the British democracy made a lasting impression on him, like later generations of visitors. He did note the contrast to the autocracy, which the very same colonizers maintained in their tropical dependencies. So this may not be answering all of it, but it looked like it had a long-lasting impression on him and kind of guided a lot of his approach to things going forward for him.
That is true. That is true. It's almost like, you're in England and you see the way they do things, but you see the hypocrisy because of their foreign policy in, other lands. So that is part of the answer, yes. If no one else has anything to add, we can look at the full answer, but that is on track.
Yeah, I mean, he read it, but I was pulling the democracy versus the autocracy.
We can pull it up. So some of the things were the workings of British democracy made a lasting impression on him. He called for an extension of British justice to the colonies. It enhances knowledge of the worldwide struggle and nationalist struggle of Black people. And the African Times and Orient Review expose Garvey to leading Black figures who would before long be his associates in the United States.
Yep.
So number 12 says, Garvey's travels enlarged his vision. He arrived back in Jamaica on July 15th, 1914. And the question is, what did Garvey do 5 days after his arrival to Jamaica? And what fears about the Black race did his travels abroad reveal to him?
Yes, I see it.
Go ahead. You want to take a shot?
Founding a racial movement, specifically formed the Universal Negro Improvement and Conservation Association and African Communities Imperial League. To address
Yes,
the fear, which he never relinquished, that weak races were doomed to slavery and possibly extinction.
exactly. Anyone else wanted to add anything? Okay. So he founded the Universal Negro Improvement and Conservation Association communities. And later on, they took out the conservation part. But the whole thing also strengthened his conviction that weak races were doomed to slavery and possible extinction, as Brother John stated. Anyone wanted to add anything else? So now we have another thing in his own word or in his own words. Oh yeah. Okay, so right where so he's just observing. So if anyone wants to do that one, I can read it if no one wants to do it. Anyone want to take that one?
I can do it. I mean, I did the other one, but I can do it. No problem.
You want to do that one?
Sure. For the last 10 years, I have given my time to the study of the condition of the Negro, here, there, and everywhere. And I have come to realize that he is still the object of degradation and pity the world over, in the sense that he has no status socially, nationally, or commercially. And then it says, with a modicum of exception in the United States of America.
Thank you for reading that, Brother John. So we see all of this is just strengthening his conviction and his cause, and he's becoming more and more determined. So 13 says, with Garvey as president and traveling commissioner in the newly formed Universal Negro Improvement and Conservation Association and African Communities Imperial League. That's a mouthful. I see why we went to UNIA. What were some of what were some of the organization's stated objectives? Does anybody remember any of them? Don't have to know all of them.
I do know, I mean, some of them weren't listed in the text. They only listed a few.
I don't think they listed all, but they had a few of
Yeah.
them that were in our constitution. Without looking, I remember Universal Confraternity. Anyone else want to give it a shot?
My favorite is the last one, to work for better conditions among Negroes everywhere.
That's correct.
To establish a nation, a central nation for Black people.
Yes. That is true. Was there anything else?
Setting up of educational institutions.
That is correct. I think those were the main ones. Universal confraternity among the race, to establish the establishment of a central nation for Black people, the setting up of educational institution, and a pledge to work for better condition among Negroes everywhere. Anyone wants to add anything to that?
Yeah, as I said,
Anyone wants to discuss?
I was just saying that's all they had in the book. That's all they had in the book.
Anyone wants to define confraternity?
I think I know it.
Okay.
It's a collective or universal brotherhood, in my memory.
Yes.
Etymology,
Okay.
etymology, confraternity, brotherhood, society of men united for some purpose or in some profession. I thought it was dual gender though. I thought that was what made a confraternity different from a fraternity. Directly.
I would think it's brotherhood or sisterhood, but to me, it's just unity.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking before I focus on it. I was thinking just meant unity, uniting the race.
But yeah, that's the etymology.
Okay. If no one else.
Oh, sorry.
And the other question pertaining to the organization was who became secretary of the organization? Anyone want to take a shot? Brother John just showed it.
Oh, I got a question on that. Well, I guess Grace first may not go into it, but do we know when this individual became secretary? Because my understanding was they weren't included in at least the inaugural meeting. They weren't at the first meeting, but
I think there was something said in there about the second meeting. Right, it was like the second meeting or something to that effect.
I was reading something today about a split at one of the meetings, I guess the first meeting, and then they became two separate organizations.
in the first meeting?
Oh, you mean the African League and the UNIA?
No, the UNIA split. There was a group of members who I guess they voted Garvey out, and Amy Ashwood and Amy Jocks started another meeting and reinstated him. It was something like that. But what I read was there were several splits and several organizations, I guess. One was incorporated in New York as the UNIA. Garvey's was the UNIA-ACL. After the split.
Okay.
I was going to read more on it later on tonight, but I haven't had a chance to go through the whole thing.
They didn't really get into that, but definitely it did mention that it was the second meeting. So there's some detail that they probably left out. So, and that was correct. That was Amy Ashwood.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to add anything else? She was at the St. Baptist Literary and Debating Society. It talk about an inaugural meeting, so maybe those are details that were left out that happened during that time. So if no one has anything else to add, question 15 says that Garvey was seen in the minds of many as an agitator and a nuisance. What does Garvey say about respectable Negroes who opposed his movement and had not learned to love their Blackness? And then I can read that one if it kind of I can read that one before we look at the answer. I can read another passage that he further expounded on what that was. So it says, I had to decide whether to please my friends, and be one of the black whites of Jamaica, and be reasonably prosperous, or come out openly and defend and help improve and protect the integrity of the black millions and suffer. So he had to decide whether he wanted to fight for the people or be what he called the black white of Jamaica. Basically, white people in black skin is how I interpreted that. And so he could come out openly and defend and help. That's on page 7, like the second paragraph. So he chose to choose to help improve and protect the integrity of the black millions and suffer. And basically the answer to that question was kind of in his words. Does anyone have anything to add to that? So the passage kind of went on to say that the first year they only had like 100 members. Anything to add? Are we?
No, I think it's straightforward. He made a decision.
Okay.
Sacrifice for his people.
Yes. Okay. All right. So if no other comments or questions, we can advance to the next question. That's just showing we're talking about the period 1915. Go down to question 16, I guess. Was there a question before that, or we had answered 15? Oh yeah, okay, so 16.
Yeah.
Okay, so it says, according to the Jamaica Times, in November 1918, where was the first public meeting for the first time outside of Kingston held? Anyone want to take a guess?
I think I remember this one. Nobody?
Was it in Harlem?
In where?
Harlem, New York.
Not yet.
Not yet.
For the second time, I'll give it a shot. Was it when he went back home to St. Anne's Bay?
That's correct. St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica. Garvey's hometown. I was actually born in Kingston, but some of my family are from St. Anne's. Okay. So the next question says, Garvey planned to embark on a fundraising lecture tour in the United States to raise funds for an industrial institute to be established in Jamaica. Something postponed is fundraising lecture tour for 4 months. Does anyone remember what that is?
I think I know.
Go ahead, Brother John.
Was it Booker T. Washington's death?
That is correct.
Hmm.
That is correct. So it's the death of Booker T. Washington, and Booker T. Washington had assured him a level of support, so he didn't end up going when he planned on going. So the next question says, Garvey arrived in New York on March 23rd, 1916 for a 5-month lecture tour. His conviction about being called to emancipate the race was stronger than ever. What did Garvey told Robert Rusa Moulton, who was Booker T. Washington's successor at Tuskegee, about his mission? What did he tell Booker T. Washington's successor about his mission? Does anyone remember that one?
What did Garvey tell? Oh, what did Garvey tell Mr. Moulton?
Or told, yes, the successor of, he told him about his mission. I want to give it a shot. It's at the top of page 8. It's in the book, that is. It might not be the same as the if no one wants to take a shot, we can reveal the answer.
There was something about a divine mission.
That is correct. He says, that he was talking with him as a man with a mission from the high God. And then he goes on to, if anybody wants to take on that passage, he goes on to elaborate in a letter. That's like the second paragraph on page 8. Anyone want to read that? If not, I'll read it. Any volunteers? So it says, I have many large schemes on my mind for the advancement of my people that I cannot expose at the present to the public. As in such a case, my hope of immediate success would be defeated, as my enemies are so many, and they are ever anxious to misrepresent me. I have firstly to found a press of our own and to get some working start, so as to demonstrate my true intentions. So he was essentially saying that he can't reveal everything, and the first and most important thing is to get their own press started and get some work done. So that was what he said there.
Hmm.
And question 19 says, once in the United States, Garvey settled in Harlem, and he was lecturing in Boston by June of that year. And the question says, what are some of the other states that Garvey visited by November of the same year? Anyone want to take a guess?
I'm driving. I don't have the book, but I believe Illinois was one of the states because if I'm not mistaken, it's the same year of the Red Summer where Garvey was able to go out to Chicago. I may be mistaken, but I
Yeah,
think that's right.
Chicago is one. Yes, Chicago is
Okay.
one of the states. That is correct.
Philadelphia,
Yes, Philadelphia was one.
Pittsburgh,
Yes, that is correct.
Baltimore, and DC.
That is correct.
Sister Diane.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were looking for states or cities because your question
Yeah, that's what.
I think they were, I think, you know what? I think the state part came from me because you're right, some of them are cities and not states.
Yeah, they got New York, but then everything else is cities.
Right. So I stand corrected there. So I should have said other cities. Yeah, there are New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Washington, DC, and Chicago. So you could change it to say cities, please. Yes, thank you. And question 20 says, John Edward Bruce and William H. Ferris were among a number of prominent national and local Afro-American leaders that Garvey met. And the question says, how were the two men involved? How were, I guess, these two men involved with Garvey's weekly Negro World and Garvey's Daily Negro Times? So there were other people that Garvey met, of course, but these two men were, in particular, were involved with the Negro World and Garvey's Daily Negro Times. What role did they play? Does anyone remember?
Struggling with this one. Give me a moment.
This one is on page 8 at the bottom.
Yeah, Ferris, I believe, was an editor of the Negro World. I don't know about Bruce. Bruce, I'm not certain.
Regular member and a regular contributor and member of the editorial board.
Okay. That was Bruce.
And the other one's Ferris. Regular contributor for African Times Orient Review.
Okay.
And edit Garvey's weekly Negro World. So
That
a variety of
is correct.
okay.
Okay. So Ferris edited Garvey's weekly Negro World from 1920 to 1923, and later held a variety of high offices within the UNIA. And Bruce, he was skeptic at first, but he became a regular contributor and member of the editorial board of both the Negro World and Garvey's Daily Negro Times. So Bruce pretty much stayed on board until his death in 1924, where he was one of the staunchest Garvey supporter among the Afro-American intelligentsia. He was a big Garvey supporter.
Excuse me, family. I got a little ahead of myself when I was talking about the split. It didn't happen until in the 20s.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. We're probably going to touch on it in a later chapter. Maybe. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add? Anything else to add to this one? And so it's 9:50, and we'll do this one more last question. And we try to, okay. It says Garvey spent a year touring about 38 states before he returned to Harlem. Harlem was fitting and tempting for Garvey because a high concentration of radicals and race uplift groups resided there. So before Harlem, Garvey's participation in various events shows that he had long embroiled the spirit of Black protest, which characterized the age. And so the question is, what were some previous events Garvey participated in? And we kind of touched on a few of them earlier. Anyone want to take a shot?
Was this before the St. Louis prison police incident?
This was some of the earlier ones we touched on in what we've read in the chapter so far. So essentially the question is saying that that Harlem was just like the perfect place for him because he was an agitator. He didn't stand for, crap. He didn't like the degradation of the race. And he did some things earlier to make Harlem the fitting place for him to be. There were a lot of Caribbeans that had moved to Harlem, and there was a lot of stuff he read when he was working for that paper. And he met some of the folks that, through that paper that he had read about, that now he's actually where they are, and so basically it's just asking what events kind of prepared him, what events that he participated in that kind of made him more prepared for Harlem and all the excitement and different things that were going on at the time, because Harlem was like the Black capital. It was like that was the place to be. All the radicals were there, and that sort of thing. So basically the answers kind of touch on some of the things that we looked at previous in this same chapter. Does anyone want to take a shot or?
Yeah, I'll take a shot. I
Okay.
don't know if they're talking about the discussion, debate, what was happening 1917, the Chicago uh, race riot, and I think John mentioned St. Louis, East St. Louis. There were a lot of uh, riots going on, the red hot summer there, and I think Garvey was participating in the discussion, the debate about what was going on and what to do about it.
Okay, so I think that one is gonna come later, but the hint that I gave you guys was that um the events already took place in this chapter that we're on. So so Brother John, you can reveal the answer, please. So some of the things that we looked at previous, that he was in is some of the things that we looked at was his involvement in the printers strike, his participation in the Jamaica's National Club, his agitation amongst Black workers in Central America, the things that he saw during his travels throughout Europe, and all the events that eventually led to the formation of the UNIA. So these are things that already happened. And essentially, the way I interpreted it was that all of those things kind of prepared him for Harlem. And now he's in Harlem, and it's like there's like no better place on the planet for him to be, because he was talking about going back to Jamaica to form an industrial um to work on industry. So the whole fundraising was for him to go back. But now he's in Harlem, and it's like fuel. It's like fuel with all the radicals and all the people he's meeting. It was fuel for his mission. It was like the right place to be. So I think this is just reiterating that all of this stuff is leading up to this, and this is the right place for him to be. So as we read further into the chapter that we won't touch on tonight, we can just stop the questions here, and if you want, we can get into the next chapter, or we could pick up next week. But it's essentially they're showing all of these previous things because they're basically saying all of that was preparing him for this moment in his life in Harlem, the Black capital of the world with all the radicals and things of that nature, race uplift groups and things of that nature. And I think in the book that is on yeah, that is on page 9 in the middle of the page. It say Harlem was a microcosm of the Black world. Well, that's like World War I and the subjugation of African American. Yeah. Anyone want to add anything to that? Hello?
I'm okay right now.
Okay. Yeah, so they're saying he had long embodied the spirit of Black protests, which was what was going on. And it was inevitable that he should be tempted by Harlem, the most highly politicized Black community of the world, is how they described Harlem at the time. The most highly politicized Black community of the world. So that kind of set the stage for what Harlem was and what was going on in Harlem. Anyone wants to add to that?
Yeah.
No?
Well, other than the Harlem Renaissance, there's been debate that it was really Garvey was the source of the Harlem Renaissance. I think that's it.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Anyone else? If no one else has anything else, it's 10 o'clock. So we can pick up on the questions next week. We can close out, or we can get more into chapter 3. So
Mr. Diane, yeah, we have to close out. It's 10.
okay. Yes. All right, so we'll go ahead and close out. So if you want, Brother Imhotep, you can close us out. If everyone is on board.
Okay, if everyone will come off mute and raise your right hand and fist and repeat after me. One God,
One God,
One God,
one aim,
one
aim,
one destiny.
one
one destiny.
Africa,
Africa
for the Africans,
for the
for the Africans,
those at home,
those at home,
and those abroad.
And
those abroad.
Race first.
Race first. One love. Peace and blessings, everyone.